The night shift at the 24-hour gas station. When the police arrived, the register was open, the front door was unlocked, the lights were still on. The security cameras were recording normally. They said it looked like someone had ended a shift in a hurry. The problem is, I never left the gas station. My name doesn't matter. I had just moved to a small town somewhere in the United States. One of those places you can drive through in 5 minutes without noticing. The job was temporary. Night shift at a 24-hour gas station on the state highway. From 11 at night to 7 in the morning. The manager told me it was quiet. Hardly anyone shows up after midnight. He wasn't lying. But he also didn't tell me everything. On my first night, the guy from the previous shift handed things over to me. His name was Eric. Dark circles under his eyes, movements slow and automatic. Before leaving, he gave me a folded piece of paper. He said, "These aren't company rules, it's something else." Written by hand, there was a short list. Night shift rules. If someone stands outside for more than 5 minutes, do not look directly at them. If pump number 3 activates by itself, shut off the breaker behind the freezer. If the clock reads 3:17, do not leave the counter. If you hear someone call your name, ignore it, even if it sounds familiar. I laughed. I thought it was a joke. Eric didn't laugh. He just said, "If you follow them, the shift goes faster." Then he left. The first hour was exactly what I expected. Silence, the hum of the lights, an occasional car passing on the highway. At 1:40 a.m., a customer came in, bought coffee, didn't say a word. Normal. At 2:10, the station was completely empty. That's when pump number 3 beeped. On the monitor, it showed fueling in progress. There was no car outside. I remembered rule number 2. I went behind the freezer, shut off the breaker, waited a few seconds, and turned it back on. The alert disappeared. My heart was racing, but I tried to stay logical. Old system, technical glitch, nothing more than that. At 2:55, I saw someone outside, a man, standing under the bright white lights right in front of the window. He wasn't trying to come in, he wasn't on his phone, he wasn't smoking, he was just standing there. I checked the time. 3 minutes. 4. When it passed 5, I remembered rule number 1. I looked away, pretended to organize the shelves behind the counter. Even without looking, I could feel that he was still there, like he knew I was trying to ignore him. The digital clock flickered. 3:17. The air felt heavier. The silence felt wrong. Then I heard it. "Hey." The voice was low, too close. I didn't lift my head. "I know you can hear me." The voice sounded normal, too calm. Then it said my name, clearly. Rule number 4, ignore it. I stayed still, staring at the counter, breathing slowly. After a few seconds, the voice stopped. When I finally looked at the cameras, the man was gone from outside. But on one of the screens, the camera behind the counter, he was there, standing, right behind me. I turned around instantly. There was no one there. I looked back at the monitor. The camera showed an empty counter. I felt sick. After that, the hours stopped moving. Literally. The clock stayed at 3:17. The lights flickered. The automatic doors opened by themselves. The phone rang twice, but when I answered, there was only silence. At one point, I heard footsteps behind the freezer. There is no space behind the freezer. That's when I noticed something worse. The cameras weren't delayed. They were ahead. On one screen, I saw myself walking toward the door. On another, I was turning off the lights. On another, the counter was empty. I was still standing there, but the cameras were showing what was going to happen, or what had already happened. The last thing I heard was the voice again, very close. "Your shift is over." The lights went out. When the police reviewed the footage, they saw a normal night. An employee working, closing the register, leaving the station at 7:02 a.m. No strange behavior, no second person, no system errors. They said I simply left and never came back. But I'm still here. The clock still says 3:17, and pump number 3 just turned on again. Story 2. The elevator on floor 12. I work security in a commercial building downtown. 23 floors, cameras everywhere. Night shift, 11 to 7. Most nights, nothing happens. You do your rounds, drink coffee, wait for daylight. That was my routine for 2 years, until the night of the 14th. At 2:31 a.m., the control panel showed the elevator moving, going up, from the basement to floor 12. Not unusual. Sometimes the system glitches. But the elevator didn't stop on 12. It went back to the basement, up to 12 again, back down, up again. The same route, 6 times in a row. I went to check. The basement was empty, complete silence, nobody there. I called the elevator. The doors opened, empty. I got in, pressed floor 12. The numbers lit up normally, 1, 2, 3. On 11, the elevator slowed down. It didn't stop, just got slower, like it was carrying weight. The doors on 12 opened. The hallway was dark, lights off. Only the elevator light cutting across the floor. There were marks on the floor, wet, dark, like someone had walked there with wet, bare feet, coming out of the elevator, going down the hallway, stopping in front of room 1207. No marks beyond that point. I called my supervisor. He said, "Don't go in the room. Wait for him." While I waited in the hallway, I looked at the prints again. They were coming back, slowly, from the end of the corridor toward the elevator. I hadn't seen anyone pass. I got back in the elevator and went down. My supervisor arrived 40 minutes later. We went up to 12 together. The hallway was dry, no marks. Room 1207 locked. He said it was probably water from the walls, infiltration, condensation. I didn't say anything, but I know what I saw. The prints went in 2 directions, and they were bare feet. 3 weeks later, I transferred to a different building. I never took the elevator to floor 12 again. Last month, a colleague told me the old building was being renovated. They found water damage on floor 12, In room 1207, the floor had rotted through from underneath. The inspector said it had been like that for years. Nobody had reported it. Nobody had been in that room for years. Story 3. The Call from Room 7. My aunt had a small inn in the countryside, 7 rooms. A quiet place, almost always empty off-season. She asked me to look after it for 2 weeks while she travelled. She said it was simple. Clean, receive the occasional guest, lock everything by midnight. The first week, no guests, just me and the silence. In the second week, a man arrived, middle-aged, small backpack, paid in cash. He asked for room 7, specifically room 7. He said he had stayed there before, that he liked the view. Room 7 has no view. The window faces a brick wall. I said nothing. That night, at 3 a.m., the reception phone rang. Internal line, room 7. I answered. Silence. Then a voice, low, calm. Could you turn off the hallway light? It's bothering me. I turned off the hallway light, went back to my room. At 3:44 a.m., the phone rang again. Could you turn off the hallway light? I already turned it off. Long pause. No, it's still on. I went to the hallway. The light was off, completely dark. I stood there looking at the empty hallway, phone still in my hand. The voice said one last thing before hanging up. The other light, behind you. I turned around. There was no light behind me, but the door to my room was open. I was sure I had closed it. The next morning, I knocked on the door of room 7. No answer. I opened it with the spare key. The room was made. Bed perfectly arranged, towels folded, as if no one had slept there. I called my aunt. She said room 7 had been closed for renovation for 6 months, that she hadn't rented that room to anyone, that the lock had been changed. I went to look at the key the man had returned when he left. It was the right key. Number 7 engraved on the tag, but it wasn't the key I had given him. I called my aunt again to ask about the key. She didn't know what I was talking about. She said she had never called me. She said the inn had been closed for 3 years. She said she never asked me to watch over anything. I was there for 2 weeks, alone.